So let's take a look at some news. So this one's pretty interesting. So these guys have some app called Screen Studio, and what they did was they wanted it to automatically update. So they added some code that was supposed to check every 5 minutes for an update. And what it did was download the file every 5 minutes, resulting in 9 million file downloads. And they talk about how it happened here. It checks for the updates every 5 minutes. And when it detected the update, it downloaded it and stopped the 5-minute counting until the user installed it and restarted it. But they changed the code to remove the line that stops it, so it kept on downloading it over and over again every 5 minutes. And so they had, here's their hosting bill, was before the update $236 a month. After this, $3,000 or $5,000 a month. So they lost $9,000 before they noticed it. And so he has recommended, he said, set alerts on your cloud to warn you how much money they're charging you. Write your auto update code carefully, and add special signals you can change on your server, such as a forced update that will install without asking the user, that sort of thing. Yep. So a simple problem. And so people wonder whether electric cars can be hacked, and if so, would that be dangerous? And I'd say they absolutely can. Penetration testers have shown all the time, not just electric cars, all modern cars have a lot of computer systems, and they're connected to the internet. And people have hacked them and found all sorts of various bad things you can do, like turn off the engine, mess with the steering, things like that. But for surveillance, you'd wonder if they can read information about you from the car. And there's quite a bit on there, of course. Just the GPS tells them where you're going. And if you connect your phone with Bluetooth, you're probably sharing your contact list with them, and perhaps even more. So they're pointing this out. Experts say you probably should be worried about connecting your phone with Bluetooth to a car that is not your own personal car, like a rental. I certainly, every time I get in a rental, I see a bunch of previous people's phones have been connected to the car entertainment system. And I don't really know what all data has been sent there, but certainly people do connect them, and I've been connecting them too, because it's certainly quite handy to be able to use my customary podcast app and my customary mapping app. But there is some concern there. And similarly, it turns out Apple AirPlay is used to play images from a Mac onto another Apple device, typically, but apparently it's been built into a lot of other devices too. And they provide a software development kit for you to program to make your other device use Apple AirPlay. And it turned out that the software development kit had a vulnerability. So they found a collection of vulnerabilities for their proprietary radio-based protocol for wireless communications. So this will allow hackers to hijack speakers, receivers, set-top boxes, and smart TVs if they're on the same Wi-Fi network. And the bugs have been patched, but the problem, of course, the fundamental problem with the Internet of Things is they don't typically update, and users typically don't know how to update them, and then the people that make them may not even make updates available. So even if they use a software version that has a known vulnerability, there's often no practical way to get it to the end users. So a lot of those devices are just going to never be patched at all. Now, to be fair, no one could do this to you unless they were able to get on your Wi-Fi network. And that at first might sound like a pretty good defense, in that maybe your password is long and they won't guess it, although a lot of them aren't. But of course, all that means is they have to infect some device on the network. So if you have a PC or a Mac and they're able to infect that, then that device is already on the network and they can attack from there. All right. So Google Shopping, you probably used it. I've used it. You can search for things and Google will have shopping links pop up. And I imagine they're getting paid advertising from those companies. I don't know, but it is a pretty good way to shop for things. It's a pretty good way to get airplane tickets. And ChatGPT is going to do it too. And it'll probably do it better, although at first it might be worse. It's going to read reviews of the things, understand the English, sort of in quotes, the way AIs understand anything, which is not really by understanding it the way a human would, but by sort of detecting the frequency of certain word patterns in it. And then they're going to recommend things. So the details are going to come out, and then the question is, how are they going to make money from that, but this is moving forward with yet another useful feature for AI that may make people think more kindly of AI, and it may make people want to invest in AI more. And also, it may be the first step I've heard of monetizing AI in a way that's invisible to the user. Currently, all the AI products are trying to convince people to pay $20 or more a month, and very few people are willing to pay that for the dubious benefits of the current generation of AI. So if they can make ad-supported AI, that's going to be a much better model. And right, a friend of mine pointed this out to me. Public libraries have a free deal with Udemy. So you can go to your public library and get free access to Udemy, and Udemy has thousands of online courses for every topic available. So this is a great thing. I didn't know this. And it makes me think much better of Udemy. In fact, people offered me to put my classes on Udemy before, and I said I'm not willing to put them behind a paywall. But this is not much of a paywall. If you can get in through your local library, that would still be available to my students. Anyway, I'm on another track. But anyway, there's a whole bunch of good stuff at Udemy. A lot of the other good educators I know have gone there. So this is pretty amazing. And I don't know exactly why. Now, Instagram has these chatbots with a personality. And I think these might be the ones that made personalities from like a Game of Thrones that would tell teenagers to go kill themselves, and then they do. So apparently they don't have any sensible content moderation, and people can make them. I think users make them. So users made one to be a therapist. And it not only does it act like a therapist, but if you ask it, do you have credentials, it will tell you it's a licensed psychologist with a doctorate, certified, 10 years of experience with a license number. All of this lies. So it will pretend to be a real licensed therapist. And I can see how the AI will, of course, do this. I mean, if you tell them pretend to be a character from a TV show, it will just totally imitate that character from the TV show based on all the dialogue it can find about that character. So if you tell it to act like a therapist, it will give an answer like a therapist. It is up to the hosting platform Meta to put some kind of limits on this so it's not doing drastic things. I'm pretty sure this is a crime to claim to have medical credentials when you don't. I think they could be prosecuted for this. Certainly it's not good, because I imagine its therapy advice is pretty terrible. I don't think just taking random therapy advice online and averaging it is going to produce high quality therapy. But anyway, I think it would be a much better content moderation decision for them to force all of these devices to admit that they are AIs and that any credentials they claim are lies. Anyway, that goes all the way back to ELIZA, which I may not have mentioned in this class, but ELIZA was written in the 1960s in a very primitive world of computers, and it pretended to be a therapist, although it didn't claim credentials, but it would just talk to you like a therapist. How are you feeling? Tell me about your parents. What's been bothering you lately? Things like that. It just had a relatively short set of canned questions like that, and then a psychologist that wrote it wanted to test and see how people responded to it. And his secretary formed a close relationship with ELIZA, told it all her secrets, tried to hide her chats with ELIZA from him, reacted to it as if it was a real person, even though it was a really, really crude, weak simulation of a person, which shows, I think, the risk here. Humans have this ability to project their intelligence onto something else that has very little humanity, and yet imagine it's a human, and they form relationships with their plants and their pets and stone idols and so on. People can develop an attachment to something when in fact the thing they're getting attached to does not reciprocate it at all. They're just reflecting their own emotional meaning onto it. So it's a fundamental problem with any kind of device that provides some kind of artificial friend, that you might trust it too much and get injured by that. So there's chemicals in plastic. They're in a whole lot of contents here, and apparently they cause a lot of heart disease deaths, which is pretty amazing. It's in food packaging, plastics, lotions, and shampoos. Phthalates. I've heard people talk about these. I never was quite sure what's wrong with them, but they're claiming that they're causing an awful lot of deaths. Apparently most of them in Asia, the Middle East, and the Pacific. Perhaps because they just have more total people over there. Anyway, it certainly sounds like they better ban these things. And I don't think that's going to happen under a Trump administration. They're ending all the product safety tests and all that. They see that as a waste of time, but perhaps if the Democrats take power 4 years from now, they can begin protecting us from these things again. There's more fallout. A couple of weeks ago, it came out that some Zurich researchers, I'm guessing perhaps psychology researchers, made a bunch of AIs, perhaps political science, that ran in a Reddit channel and pretended to have politically incendiary things to say, and they measured how people interacted with them and how many people had their attitudes changed by the persuasive comment of these bots. And that's against the Reddit terms of service. And what's amazing to me is it violates all human subject protocol. I used to do medical research on human subjects, and you can't do that without going before your ethics board and having them ask really tough questions like, what are you going to do to these people? Are they going to know what you're doing? What's the chance it will harm them? They're worried about this. In previous decades, people did unethical medical research, and that shouldn't be happening. And this is unethical. I mean, they don't seem to have gone by an ethics board. Now they've had to admit they've refused to put out their name. They've said they're not going to publish the results. I think these guys just did it like cowboys without consulting any of their university authorities, which would have told them, you can't do this without passing an ethics board review first. And, this means you have taken a lot of people and fooled them and tricked them into doing something, and they could sue, they could get mad, they could suffer damage. Anyway, now the Reddit is beginning to have legal pushback, although I don't know what they can do to people in Switzerland. But anyway, it's I imagine that Switzerland has strict ethics rules about human subject research, just like America does. I don't imagine they were obeying the Swiss rules any more than the American ones. Anyway, that's enough of the news.